Please welcome Alisha Fiorante, valedictorian of the class of 2015.
Good evening, parents, friends, family, teachers, administrators, my fellow graduates, and to all the poor souls who were dragged here tonight to sit and watch hundreds of 18-year-olds prove that they can walk across the stage. To those of you who can confidently say, this is not your first rodeo, I applaud you. I've sat through one commencement prior to tonight and can assertively say I do not have patience for these sorts of events. However, regardless, on behalf of my entire graduate class, we truly do appreciate the support of each and every one of you here tonight and would not have been able to have gotten to where we are today without all of you. Let's give yourself a round of applause. My name is Alisha Fiorante, and I have the immense honor of standing before you tonight as your 2015 Valedictorian, a word I hardly knew how to spell about a month ago. Wow, come on. If you were ever thinking about extending my curfew, now is your time. But, in all honesty, I am completely honored to be before you tonight, representing such a diverse and talented grad class. Also at this time, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the presence of one of our own who could not be here with us tonight, Jalen Sanju. Whether Jalen was a close friend or acquaintance to us graduates, if there is one thing we can all agree on, it is that no life deserves to be taken so young. Despite Jalen not sitting behind me tonight, I know he is with us in spirit and will be forever remembered. It has been an absolute privilege to grow up alongside all of you, my fellow graduates. With a class of nearly 300 students, I feel as though I hardly know some of you, and that is something I will always regret. I also know far, far too much about some of you, and that is also something I will always regret. Having attended high school with these fine graduates these past 5 years, I can confidently say that our grad class truly has a little bit of everything. Within the stands behind me, we have your next pharmacists, your next nurses, your next plumbers, your next businessmen, your next pilots, your next engineers, and your next electricians. Regardless of what your next step is, I strongly feel as though we were fortunate to have shared this step here together at Fleetwood Park. Fleetwood Park was a remarkable place to grow up. Walking in the first day of grade was practically an out-of-body experience. To say we were overwhelmed would have been a massive understatement. However, as the fall leaves withered away, so did our reservations, and before we knew it, we were fully certified, legitimate, fire-breathing dragons. It was an intense initiation process, let me tell you. The grade 8 retreat was our first test. We had to prove that we could fall off a table into the trusting arms of our fellow classmates without blinking an eye. The annual retreat was not only a grade 8 luxury, but also an open to the older grades as well. As a little grade 8er, I can still remember the grade 12s filing in and introducing themselves. In my eyes, they were celebrities. I wanted to know who was dating who, where they got their outfits from, and most importantly, what my life would look like when I was in grade 12. It's hard to believe that a short 5 years later, this has become my reality. The remainder of grade 8 seemed to fly by, or perhaps I've subconsciously blocked out the vast majority of those embarrassing acne-ridden days. However, regardless, before we knew it, it only took us 3 times to open our lockers instead of the usual 5 because we had made it to grade 9. In my eyes, grade 9 is perhaps the lesser of 2 evils. At the time, I recall feeling as though we were no longer the babies of the school and had an acute sense of relief that the older grades could no longer dub us annoying and inexperienced in regards to high school. Having had 9 months of high school experience under our belts, we could now dub a new generation the newbies. However, looking back, the awkward stages endured during grade 8 didn't exactly disappear for grade 9, and thus grade 9 essentially became an elongated version of grade 8. Although I cannot say that these cringeworthy years had a negative impact on my overall high school experience. In fact, they did quite the opposite. During these insecure, cumbersome years of adolescence, us grade 8 stumbled upon camaraderie that would follow us throughout high school, passions and hobbies that would define our latter years, and a sense of irreplaceable unity from student to student. If there is one thing every single high school math course has taught me, it is that no matter how unfamiliar your classmates seem to you on the first day, come exam time, you'll be making a lot of friends. There is virtually no way of not forming a bond over a 2-day pre-calculus 12 final, like there's probably marriages that occur with the calculus ones. Fleetwood Park was an ideal school to accommodate the variety within our grad class. Whether we excelled at performing on stage, performing on the court, or performing in class, Fleetwood Park supported us through it all. We were told upon entering high school to get involved, to get the most out of our high school experience, and in all honesty, that could have been the best advice ever given to us. If the boys of our senior boys basketball team hadn't gotten involved, perhaps we wouldn't be able to call ourselves provincial champions. If the members of the senior girls soccer team had never decided to try out, we would not have placed second in the province. If the senior dance team had decided that school was merely a place for education, perhaps other schools wouldn't quiver in fear with our presence at competitions. If the wonderful students from Student Council hadn't dedicated their weekly Wednesday lunchtimes to bettering the student body, our high school years would not have been near as memorable. And if the music program had no students, Fleetwood Senior Jazz Band would not have nearly attained gold at the Kiwanis Festival this past May. Yes, Fleetwood certainly has lots of room for activities. However, without the leadership and support of our generous teachers and administrators, these experiences certainly wouldn't have been possible. These selfless, dedicated individuals took time out of their own personal lives to better our high school years. They allowed us to get involved, find our niche, and ultimately expand our horizons. Let's give them a round of applause. No matter what foul stories people share with me about high school, I cannot seem to agree. Now, don't get me wrong. These will not be the quote-unquote best years of our life. I mean, not if I can help it. If cross grades and deep tests are all we've got to look forward to in life, then we've got a very dark future ahead of us. However, that could be the case. I mean, we are all going to be broke students these next few years. However, when put into perspective, the good absolutely outweighed the bad. No matter how vastly different each and every one of us is, we all share a common bond, having been raised as a dragon together. Regardless of what separate paths we take, we will always find a comfort and a commonality we share with 300 other graduates. We go out into the real world together with the support of those around us. We'll continue to favorite each other's tweets and like each other's photos, regardless of where life takes us. Years from now, when we see one another in the airport terminal or at our local Safeway with 10 kids in tow, I truly hope that we take the time to stop by and catch up with one another. As cliche as it all really does sound, graduating high school is only the beginning. We've got our whole life ahead of us, and we deserve to be excited. Take care, class of 2015, and I wish you all the best.